Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to this tutorials. Today will be a long lesson, so grab some drink and let's start it. As you can see, I just position our dude next to the border between two terrain tiles on X axis. If we actually can select this, our guy W, yeah, you can see it's an X, which one is represented by a red arrow. This will be main today's our test, just jumping between two terrain classes. One of the things before we start today we need to understand is, well, not understand, but what we need to adjust. Up to this point, when we let's draw this one. Okay, nice. Up to this point, our all requests for terrain painter was squares. If I can actually draw a square, yeah, they all were square. And when we send request, we offset by half X and Y coordinations to actually make our NPC to be in the middle of our terrain painter request position. But let's think this way. Then NPC will be approaching the edge, and this is his square. Let's say it's a bigger guy and he's interacting with square. He's interacting with terrain much more. So now we have two requests. We have one request here and a second request here. As you can see now, they are not squares anymore. They are two rectangles. So this is the first thing we need to take in account. Adjust our code to that we will have two requests instead of one. Another thing is that we need to somehow indicate that this is our main request on terrain ID. I don't know. Let's say 00 for our just test purpose. And this is overlap request. Still the same class, but we'll have some indication that this is overlap request, not a main request coming from NPC, and we have a different ID, 01. So we will have two requests. Following this one, we have another issue. Well, not an issue, but another challenge is when we cross NY and X. So in this scenario, we will adjust. Just grab me this one. So this will be our main request. So our main as 1. Yep. And then we send another additional request into x-axis. So let's put this request number 2. Then we check and we will see that yeah, that's a good one. So then we check and we will see that a third request need to be sent to the axis, which one is 1. Sorry, not axis, y-axis, but how to say, the terrain tile ID, which one it will be 1. Oh, my bad. 0, 1. And by the way, this one is not correct. It's 1, 0. Because don't forget, if that's X, that's Y. So, and the challenge will be, or not challenge, but we need to implement additional check that when we send to request number 2, request will be sent in this size. It's this rectangle. Oh, I need to take something more. It will be sent. It will be sent as this rectangle. So this rectangle itself become request number 1, and we'll send request number 2. Following this, we'll send another request as this rectangle to y. And this as well become as main 1, and we'll send another 2 here. And what we will end up is that we will paint this diagonal corner twice. One from x coordination and one from y coordination. So to prevent that one, we will implement additional checks to not do this. What else for today plan? I think this covers most today's lesson. If something else, I'm more than glad to guys to draw for you. Okay, let's double check we're recording. Yes, we are recording. So, as you can see, I have quite a lot errors, actually 17 errors in total. But just because I've read the code and I checked the code, and that code is now on a second screen, helping me guys to speed up and bring you a better quality of tutorials. So, but that script which I've written already is in the same solution, so it's giving some errors. So ignore that one for now. We'll come back to them later. So step number 1. First, as I just said to you, we need to. It's not no more a square request. We need to treat all the paint requests as rectangles to do that one. So for that we'll be using a private vector to int, and we can actually say a map request, because we have a map position, alpha map position, and now we'll have a vector to integer a map request. Following this one, we will jump into our paint texture script straight away, and let's have a look. Our paint request script straight away. Well, this one, paint texture, sorry. And here, from the last lesson, we have if the paint request is 0 or greater, we just return. So we stop. We're not doing anything in the script, and we was actually debugging. Now we won't be debugging, and actually we not even do any of this ones as well, or this one. And spoiler alert, I'll leave it note here. So we will approach this next tutorial. This will be a problem, not a problem, but and following challenge exactly about when we add below 0. The moment we consider only when we go right or up in our 2D map. So if the map is this x or y is less than 0, we return and we're not doing anything. But else, if it isn't, we need to check other things. First of all, we need to check if it is how to say, if it is a greater, one second. Yeah, we need to check if it is greater than our screen width. That's the one I was looking for. So if okay, before even starting this one, we just created a variable we called a map request. So let's assume that a map request, the size of a square we are requesting is actually within, how to say, our alpha map request is actually within the tile itself. It's not on a board. If you think this way, the times of all the terrain interactions, the percentages of the times when an NPC will be on an edge between two terrains will be much less than the time the NPC will be walking in the middle or somewhere within boundaries of terrain. So we will assume in the beginning of a script, we will assume that is no problems, and a map request is actually new vector int, which one is which one will be tpr dot what's called terrain paint size and paint size, yeah, plus tpr dot fade size multiplied by 2, and for y it's the same, tpr dot paint size plus tpr dot fade size multiplied by 2. Before even moving forward, we'll be, okay, we'll come back to them later, because my OCD is saying that, my telekinesis is saying that we need to change it from int into vector2, but I think we'll come back to this one later. When we change a main variable in our class, it will give a lot of errors, and will be just we will be adjusting each compiler's error, and we will find all variables which one we need change, from int to vector2. Okay, let's carry on. So if now it will be way too many. Will be way too many? Let's think. Okay, let's do it this way, and when we change. Okay, so if our IMAP position, yes, dot x plus terrain painter request, tpr dot paint size plus terrain paint request dot fade size multiplied by 2 is greater than terrain we are currently on. So terrains at tpr dot terrain id dot x tpr dot terrain id dot y terrain data, and I think it's called width, so alpha map width, that's the one. So if our request is greater than terrain data alpha width, alpha map width, so that's mean we approaching to the boundaries of the tile, of terrain tile. So following steps, what we need to do is, okay, let's say we're painting 10 pixel width square, and we already 3 pixels in the next terrain tile. So 7 we need to paint on this tile, and the 3 we need to paint on another tile. So what we need to do, the first thing, is to actually find how many of that pixels we are on the next terrain. To do that one, I really like to create like a variable which one will be using multiple times, and it will, let's call it different, and different is equal to 0. Now we're saying that different is equal that actually a map, because we know a map position dot x plus tpr dot paint size plus tpr dot fade size multiplied by 2 is, we know that this is greater, and in our example we know that this number is greater by 3 pixels. What we need to do is actually to subtract, and I just copy this one, terrain painter, terrain ID, which one are we standing at? Alpha math width, and this number is 1024 in my case. So let's say this one is 3 pixels up. So this number, a map position plus and plus should be 1027. So the difference is 3 pixels. We just find that it's a 3 pixels. Following thing is, so in the beginning we assumed that we are requesting a full 10 by 10 full 10 by 10 full 10 by 10 request. Is it that correct? Yeah, yes. So we are actually asking to change or interact of terrain by 10 by 10. We assumed that the NPC is not an edge. Later in the script we checked and we find that NPC actually is 3 pixels interacting with another terrain. So what we need to do is we need to adjust our AMAP request. So AMAP request, instead of being this one, we create a oh yeah. So y will be leaving same. So let's put this. Let's repeat the sentence again. At line 7.2, we assume that NPC is not on the edge of terrain. Later, we checked and we find that terrain NPC is interacting with the neighbor terrain tile. In our case, for example purpose, we assume that it's 3 pixels is interacting with a different terrain. Because we checked an x axis, we no need to interact with y. So we know this one is a square, but in our example, like etc. this one, y is still the same. Now we know that x1 and x2 is different. So what we need to do is, instead of interacting, we changing whole AMAP request, we will be changing only .x, and it is really simple. It is original size what we requested. So tpr dot paint size plus tpr dot fade size multiplied by 2. Multiplied by 2, and I wanted to put everything this into one bracket. Now we're saying that's 10. In our example, it's 10. Now we need to say minus different. So we just find that this number is 7, and we need to paint y is still same by 7, this square. Let's paint this one first. And to do that one, we just go AMAP request, and we change here. So instead of this one, AMAP request, we're saying .y, and AMAP request .x. Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to change this ones as well. So let's change a with y. So when you declare the variable, you can actually select it, type a new name, follow it by control dot, and choose rename y to a to y. And this will change all references related to this one. So let's say the B. You see, the Visual Studio selects all the B variables references to this reference. So what we need to do is just actually change to X followed by control dot enter, and voila. Okay. So now we just adjust our terrain request. Next thing is, okay, we just paint this one. Now we need to paint the next thing. First of all, we need to find somehow size 3. So to do that one, to do that one, no, to do that one we no need to do. First thing, we need to find ID of new terrain. So if this was 0, 0, this must become 1, 0, correct? Because this is X and this is Y. Cool. So we need to check. Maybe it's last terrain on which one you can go to the right. There's no more terrains you can go on the right. Maybe it's the last one. So what we need to do is to saying terrain, how to say? Oh yeah, TPR terrain request terrain ID dot X plus 1 is less than no terrain array counter. So if terrain which one we are currently at X plus 1 is still less than we actually have maximum on X axis, if we still have any tile left on the right side, then we do something. And we just leave the comment for now. Add overlap request to the queue. Okay. Really quick, we do for Y as well. That will be simple. We're just saying if the map y is greater than alpha map height, then different is equal to alpha map y and alpha height. Yep. So a map request y is changed to terrain paint size multiply minus different. And if y plus 1 is still something, we add here for q. Pause the video here for a second if you need to double check is everything written correctly in your code. I'm not giving you any errors or anything. If you're receiving any errors, please leave a note or just write in on Discord. Most times I'm on Discord, sometimes playing games, sometimes just doing some other projects. So keep in touch. Okay, coming back to this coding. Now, when we done this note to do to add overlap request, we need actually to go and create a new request. So first of all, we have when we creating a new terrain class instance on constructor, we passing vector 3. But now when we actually overlapping, we know the pixels, and because this and this tile is same with the same width and the same height, so we know that this pixel and this pixel is same distance and has same number on y-axis. And it's really easy, by the way, to guess the x value because that's 0. and that's 1024 in my case, whatever number you set of resolution of your alpha map. So that's really easy to calculate as well. So we know already the pixels of overlap. So to indicate if your terrain painter request is overlapped one or is not overlapped one, create a public boolean called overlap and by default set to false, because most of the times it will be false. And in the end of this first constructor, add overlap to false to make sure that if we create the new terrain request and we use a builder, no, sorry, not builder, constructor with passing the vector 3 as position, that means it's not overlap. It's not overlap request. Copy all this constructor and paste one more time, but this time change a vector to int as position. And for compiler, it's everything is okay for from its perspective, because compiler will know which one constructor you are referring by the variables or how to say parameters you are passing to the function. So if you're passing a vector 3, the compiler will know this is this constructor you want. If you're passing vector int as a parameter, okay, compiler know you want this one. To save this a new variable type, a vector to int, I called o underscore position. So it's overlap position for me. And I'm saving this vector to int passed to constructor to a local variable. And that would be all for our terrain. Is it? Okay, yeah, we need to change now. So TPR or terrain paint request should to have now a vector to int, as I said before. Yes. And now we should to ask for a constructor. So constructor to, instead of passing paint size, pass us a vector to int. And same applies here. The reason is because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this tutorial, we know more working with squares. We working with rectangles, and we need vector to int. Of course, this step gives me 15 errors, which one is related to our. And if you're not seeing these errors, let's go here. Let's pretend you haven't seen these errors. So as I mentioned before, you see I have only one script open. You can save it, and sorry, you can actually save it, and you're very happy. Is no errors. Or maybe you can see some. You'll fix some, but I know that I use this class in different scripts, which one I have not opened yet. Well, I have opened it yet before, but I have closed it at the moment. I have closed them, and it's really hard to go every single script to check or find references you change it. The easiest way what I'm using is just using Control-Shift-Build. So Control-Shift-B for build, and this will bring all the errors. If it's still not bringing this table on the bottom, I can a bit zoom it. It's because you're still on a build output. Press error list and make sure errors is selected, because if you deselect, it's just a hide. I hide all warnings about variable types. I should address them, but sometimes it's too picky for my opinion. Okay, so let's address each of them. So starting from the top, double click on error, and we know the paint size is no more int. So amap position x should to ask .x, and position y it should to .y. a map request should be paint size dot x for x and dot y for y. Following this one, we can see a map position dot x. A map position dot x is x. We need to add here, and a map request new one is just dot x multiply it times y, apply same, and same here, same here, and we still have a few left. A map, okay, this is a good one. So now we not should use original values because we have a map request. Yes, that's original request. Now, if we find out that, okay, let's go back to drawings. So this is original size of request, 10 by 10, as example, yeah, 10 by 10 pixels. And we just find out that the 3 of them is interacting with another terrain. So here we should not use 10 by 10 or in our example values. We should use a map request, which one is 10 by 10. Then we adjusting depending which side the NPC is approaching. And now when we when we requesting from alpha map a data, we should to request only for that rectangle size. So a map request.x and a map request.y. Save. Okay, cool. What 2 more to go. So y, if it's y, it's greater than 10 per dot y, and size is greater than x, and okay. Oh yeah. So add terrain request. This is a good one. So this should be a vector too. Which one? It should not be by default anything. Save. And now control shift build, and we should find another error, which one is not in this script. If I double click, it's terrain interactor, and terrain interactor doesn't like this paint size public variable attached to our NPC. We need to change to vector 2 by default. New vector int 5, 5. Save. And if while I'm not forget, I'm in this page. Let's select our NPC and make sure that our paint size is 3 by 3. Okay, yeah, 3 by 3 sounds good to me. Fade size is 3 and 3 by 3. Sounds good to me. Okay. The thing is, why it's 3 by 3 and not 5 by 5? It's because I write this code before and I set values 3 by 3, so editor is still remembering it. Okay, let's get back to our painter interactor. We just change and we create another constructor, which will take a different position, which one is integer, as pixels, not vector3 as a world position. And to indicate which one, to indicate the difference between this class of terrain paint request, we have overlap true and overlap false boolean. So taking this boolean, we can actually identify what type of terrain paint request we actually working with. Okay. And when we done this and we done that, we can actually go and add overlap request into the queue. So terrain, we have terrain request queue dot add. This will be long one. This one, and I will start with this, so it'll be more readable. So I know we need to pass a vector 2 for position. So new vector to int for position. And because we are checking y direction, yes, because we going for y director. Wow, it's quite a lot. Let's delete a bit. Okay, so because we're going x direction, so right, when we hit this one, let's assume we're going straight line. When we hit this one, the first terrain paint request, y, so let's change color a bit. So the y will be same. Let's say on this side, the y coordination was 548. So on this side, terrain request, y values will be same because they are on the same diagonal. Correct? Correct. But for axis, this is the last one. So axis, let's change the color. So we know it will be 1024. But for our new request, it will be 0. So taking this one in account, we need to pass a new vector into position. So x will be 0 because it's a next tile on the right, a beginning of the next tile on the right. So it will be definitely 0. And y should be the same. TPR dot no, sorry. Thinking. Oh yeah, it's just simple amap position dot y, comma. Okay, it's not bringing me a list. And why it's such if okay. It is simple because we need to start with terrain request queue. We need to add new terrain paint request, and we call our constructor. Okay, now when we put comma, we know that the vector to int position we're done. Next one, it's a vector int terrain ID. By the way, you can see now I can actually scroll up and down from all available same functions. In our case, it's 2 constructors. That's in coding world called overload. So we can call the same function with the same name, but they have a different parameters. And as I mentioned before, the compiler will know which one function with the same name you are referring to, just because you're passing a different types of variables. It's really useful to do that one. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to scale something. You can actually write a code to scale just using one float. You'll scale X, Y, and Z by a float. So I want to scale whole object to 2. I just pass 2.0f, and that's it. You can write another function with the same name, but you will take a vector 3. So you want to scale your object to the same size of another object, which one scale will be returned as a vector 3. So that's really simple. And the third function, again with the same name, you can write a scale that object, which one will take 3 floats. Maybe I want to scale on axis only. So I'll write scale and I'll pass 2, 1, 1. So 1 leave the same scale, and this will be twice of size on just X axis. So this is a good example of how you can actually use overload functions for your own use cases. It's the same name, three different different parameter types going into function, and you just always using the same function. It's really good skill. Cool. Let's go. Let's get back to the let's get back to coding. Vector2 int for terrain ID. That's simple. We just checked that we have on this line. We just checked that we have one more terrain on the right side. So we need a new vector2 int, and it must be tpr current tpr terrain ID dot x plus 1 because we're going right, and current tpr dot terrain ID dot y. Okay, we just completed one more comma. What's next one? A paint size. Which one should be a vector2? Okay, new a vector2 int again. Cool. Let's think again. So we need to paint this square. We need to paint this square. Which one is 7 on this side and 3 on this side? We're still working on this first request. So, oh no, sorry. We're not working with first request. Why? We're adding a second request to the list. So we need a difference. So an x will be a different. Aha. This is a cool one. This is a really cool one. So it's a 3 pixels on the side. But let's say our fade size is 4. So 4 pixels on this side and 4 pixels on this side is a fade. So when we're bringing a new terrain request, we need to pass the paint size and the fade size. To do that one, we'll be using a new coding thing. I don't know how to call it. I definitely know my colleagues. They know the name of this tool or this function. So depending on the number, which one is higher or which one is lower, you need to put here a value. Easiest way to do if condition, and you just copy paste all these lines, maybe 20, 50 lines, and you just, depending on if condition in the beginning, you change a different value. But that's really hard to read afterwards, and it can get complicated very, very quick. So to go around with this one, we need to put condition. It's really simple syntax. We put condition, any question, less, more, not equal, or anything between these lines, yeah? Followed by question mark, and then we put 2 values separate by column. Slowly kisses passing by the river. Okay, so condition. We want to check if that how many pixels we are interacting on another terrain, is that number is greater than the fade size or not. So the different is the different, yes, greater than tpr dot fade size, question mark. Now we need to follow by true and false. If the different is a greater, yes, then fade size. So let's say we are already 5. No, so let's leave it the same example. We have 3 pixels interacting with another terrain tile, but our fade size is only 1 pixel. So we know that the main paint size should be 2. So different minus tpr dot fade size. So if we 3 pixels in another tile and our TPR fade size is 1, our main paint size will be 2. But if it's not, so column, if it's not, then 0. Let's close the brackets, comma. Okay, I'll come back to this one. I'll repeat this example with another line, and I hope so you will get it or get used to this one. So condition followed by question mark. If the condition is true, this value will be taken in here. Oh yeah, that's why it's error, because we need to give y as well. Okay, if this condition followed by a question mark is false, then the value after column will be presented. So we just done x, we need y, and the y should be oh, that's really simple. Huh. I'm looking in my notes and there was like that should be really simple. It's TPR dot paint size dot y. That's it. So we know this one. Now next one, it's a new. Let's double check. If you want to see what next variable should be coded, what you need to do is just actually delete the not column. Jesus Christ, what's this column called? This was column. Jesus, I'm really terrible with science. So really quick. Comma, that's the one. Yeah, Jesus Christ, what's happening with me today? So if you want to bring back that, how to say, a tip or advice what next variable you need to write, just delete the comma. Yeah, delete the comma and put the comma back. So it brings this table again. So I need to fade size now, and that is integer. That's really simple. Just TPR dot fade size. Oh, we need to check again. So is the different less this time than TPR dot fade size? Let's think this together. And followed by question mark. So the different, let's say it's 3 pixels, and the TPR is 1. No, let's take a true first, 5. So that's mean that the fade size will be 3 pixels. You cannot paint 5 pixels, yes, because if the fade size is 5 pixels, you cannot paint 5 pixels because only 3 pixels is a request to interact. So that's mean the different is less than fade size. So for this, if this is true, the fade size will be only the same as different. But let's say it's larger. So if it's larger, then just TPR fade size. Okay, that's how simple it is. If the different, which one we just calculated, is 3 pixels, so we're interacting with another terrain tile, and our fade size is 1 pixel. So that's false. That's become false. Different is greater than TPR, so that's false. So what compiler will do, ignore this value and takes this value and insert insert is literally the same as I will write 1. That's it. The compiler on all this code will see 1. But let's say TPR is 5. Different is 3 and TPR is 5. So different is less than 5. So let's take different. And compiler will insert 3. That's all. The compiler will see only the number 3, which one will be added into our constructor in our paint request. And 3 becomes, if you look here, 3 becomes this number, integer fade size. And we save it as a fade size inside, well, locally. Let's put it this way, locally, inside of this class. So where is that 3? And we'll see, yeah. Comma, next one, paint strength. Oh, that's easy. TPR dot paint strength. And done. Let's delete some. Okay. If you have space some problems, what you can do for compiler, you just delete semicolon and put again, and it will fix all the gaps and space between in your code. If you let's say I've done something and I missed space here or space here and space here, and you have like OCD as me, just delete semicolon, put again, and it will fix your code. Okay, do we need to add anything here? No. Okay, we can copy this one and we can do same with Y. Just this time, can we fix? No, we can't fix it here. So it's a bit, compiler is a bit stupid in this case. By the way, why I done this one in this, and so for compiler, all the space and for especially for C language, all the space and enter it ignores. What actually compiler will see in C language is one long line. I mean, like when you press build or anything, yeah. And what from C perspective as a compiler, what it sees from here, line 1, up to what we write it. Well, comments is ignored. 203-ish, 203 lines. Yeah. What a compiler actually will see is actually just one line, with no gaps, no space bars, nothing. It just syntax. And what is really impressive is you can actually delete everything and put in one line. Or you can actually enter every single variable if you want. And it will still be okay. And that will be perfectly fine for compiler. Compiler don't care about space bars or enter. Oh, as long as you know put in the middle of some variable, because variable string, sorry, is still case sensitive, so you can't split your variable name into, and hoping it will be still recognized as one. So taking this fact in account, my terrain add queue starts here and ends here. For recording purpose and for myself to read it to read it easily, more easy, I just one second, my OCD. Yes. So instead of putting in one long line and I need to keep scrolling up in the sides to read everything, I just press enter and put every single parameter in new line. It's much easier to read for me and for you guys, I hope. Okay. So for Y, if we're getting Y terrain add request, and this time it is upside down. It is X is correct and Y will be 0 because we're going up. A terrain terrain ID will be the same as X and Y will be +1. and we know we won't be going outside of boundaries because we checked here. We still have any tile which don't allow us go up. Well, but by saying up, it's in Z. Actually, it's away. Far from us, from a camera, let's put it this way. But looking in 2D, it's up. And new vector int, different size, and this is changed for x. And if a different is 2 paint strength, I hope so. I'm not missed anything. Doesn't look like. Well, we'll see in the end. And what else left? I think it's pretty much that's it for. Oh yeah, one more thing. Remember, as I mentioned about this cool thingy about this is a main one as okay. Let's mark 1 as a main one and 2 here and 3 here, and 2 and 3 will become as a main ones. L will be requesting as 1 and 2 here. Okay, but this will be requesting as become main as well, and will be requesting here. So quick summarize, because when 1 will paint this, it sends a new request to paint that, and another request to paint that. 3, from his perspective, will paint this one and send a request for this. 2 paints this and send a request to paint that. So we're painting this twice. And that's when we use this overlap thing. Oh yeah, here as well. Nearly forgot it. Jesus Christ, I need to make better comments. Yep. So first thing at the moment. So in the Y, we need to double check. If we actually going for any TPR requests, and we check is not last one, yeah. But additional to this one, we need to check. Hey, you know what? Well, before we even check this one, hey, are you overlap request or not? So tpr.overlap. This terrain request is overlap. If it's true, do this one. But that's exactly sounds bad. If you catch it, yeah. So what we need to do is not. And because it's a boolean, you don't need to do, by the way, you don't need to do this fancy thing like is equal to true. No, you don't need to do that one. You just can actually say, you can just, for condition, you just can pass the boolean and it will be treated true or false. It's holds true and false inside. So you don't need to put condition is equal true. Okay, if it's not overlap request, do it. And if it's overlap request, so in our case would be like this. So I'm sending 2 requests, and I'm sending this request and this request. Let's put this green. Okay. So number 2 will paint itself and send this request. Okay, and by our condition it won't be, because he is overlap request and he is requesting to something on y-axis. Don't do that because we send it request from 3. So 3 will be painted itself and send request on y. And because it's an x, that's okay. Thumbs up. And we paint this only once. So that's what this part of this code will do. Next thing is this convertation of position, because TPR now can hold actually already pixels. This function It's actually conversion from vector3 to how to say to a vector2 int, which one represents our alpha map pixels. So what we need to do is saying if tpr dot overlap. So because it's a boolean, we no need to do repeating again. I'll repeat one more time. We no need to write is equal to true. We no need to do that one. It's maybe if you feel more comfortable at the moment and you're not sure, you can write this one. Is not a big deal. I was writing myself at the beginning when I started my coding career, but when you use many times and you start trust of this syntax, you get used to that one. And especially you need to adapt to your colleagues or your company coding style. Okay, so let's go back. If TPR is overlap, okay, is not overlap, so that means this TPR request is with vector3. So we convert and then we adjust offset to that one. But else, one more thing, I'm not doing this one if TPR overlap. And if you can think why, you'll be great coding. If you don't know why I'm not writing this one, it's just really simple logic thing, and you will get this experience, or maybe you just never thought about it. Really simple thing if you think this way. If TPI is no overlap, you no need to check it is overlap. So, it's a really struggle to explain this one. Let's say the question is this war is, I don't know, let's give an example, or let's take example, is this car is blue, any car, you just imagine your favorite car, or okay, the car you actually own, is that car is blue? If yes, let's do this one. Else, I no need to ask you again, is this car is not blue? Because you, by answering the first time, I can assume I know that it's not blue or is blue. So if I ask once if its TPI is overlap, I only need to ask a second time, because by answering this one question, I know here. Else. So I hope so. I'll explain this one well for you guys. So because we already know the pixels overlap position, what we need to do is really simple. It's a map position is equal to tpr.overlap underscore position, and that's it. We don't need any convertation between two. And da-ba-di-da-ba-di-da, it should work. Yeah, that's should be all for today's lesson. Let's test a bit. Okay. I wanted to draw this line, by the way. I liked it. And is everything ready? Yeah, ready. Okay. So our dude is going really fine, and let's get a bit closer. So it's, yeah, you see, it's no more any what to say, any gaps when we interact with terrain. Still, I can see, I think you can see as well, it's like a small gap. Each one is keep interacting slower. We can call slower. And it is, if I can demonstrate even better for you guys, it's, let's say the guy is walking bad direction. Yeah, it is gap. But this gap is not appearing from going from left to right. It's appearing because the guy is really close to the 0, and more than half is should to be painted over there, or at least this half should be painted. So that's why we're getting this half. And as I mentioned to you at the beginning of this tutorial, we even made a note here. We will be approaching this next tutorial. So when we are less than 0, we need to approach this one, do some additional calculations, and that should be all for interacting with the neighbors, neighbor terrain tile. I don't know about how you. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired. It was a really long day. Christmas is close. COVID is still madness in the world, affecting everyone's life. And I would like to wrap up now, and I'll make another video really soon. Okay, guys, thanks for your time, and bye. And